Hello, welcome to the first episode of Tangents, a brand new podcast. Because why not? The thing that YouTube needs right now is another podcast. So here we are. With me is Vikas. Announce yourself to the world.
Okay, I'm Vikas, and the person who is hosting the podcast is Chanakya.
Oh, no, we'll talk about me, but Vikas,
Okay.
where have you been? We have been looking for you since 2014. You've given us some toilets and some roads, which we were happy with.
hmm
And where the hell did you go?
Oh, I am in Bangladesh currently, so I think I'll stay here for a while. Let me figure out if India needs me or not.
Yeah. So in this podcast, this podcast once again, it's called Tangents. So the idea is that we will pick topics from current affairs and we'll go off on tangents on them. Because if you stay on topic, that's really boring. So conversation tip: never stay on topic. That's basically what the podcast is about. Vikas, what do we talk about?
So, as we have pre-decided on our agenda, first we'll talk about Hathras because I know you have some interesting points and argument to make. And personally, I think that this argument or this point that you told me about should be said out loud to the world because this will
No,
certain.
it should be a discussion that needs to be had, right? We're talking about the identity of the victim when these crimes
Yes.
happen.
Yeah. So just
Um,
to ease in our audience to this conversation, that I think most of you are aware of what happened in Hathras,
no,
and
and we're aware, and we're also aware that it's completely gone from mainstream media.
yeah, because now we have US election and BR election.
Yeah, I mean, you had the SSR thing happening for what, 3 months, or I mean, how many months was that?
2 months, I think 1.5 months, I guess, roughly one and a
Yeah,
half months.
and how many days was Hathras covered?
Week, hardly 10 days till Rahul Gandhi reached Hathras. After that, it just went down suddenly,
Yeah, and
disappeared.
he's also become invisible.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, now no word from the from India supreme leader or the opposition.
Yeah, so as I was talking about, to give a little bit context to our viewers, is that we all know what happened in Hathras, and what really happened was barbaric to the point that we cannot condone this in event. But what
Yeah,
is more,
and the thing is, because we're not talking about it enough, we are normalizing more levels. So now we're trying to normalize like disposing of bodies because that happened, and now we're not talking about it.
yeah, so just to make clear what we are talking about is that this custom has been following since 2013. Is that the moment one woman get raped, the media and this has been enforced by law that you cannot name the victim. Instead, you come up with fancy imaginative name and
Yeah,
try
I
to
mean, borrowed
cover the
from
name.
legend, borrowed
Yeah,
from
yeah,
legend,
yeah.
I mean, which has its good intentions, definitely.
hmm
Uh, but in terms of uh, defending the rights of the victim, I don't know how much it actually helps.
So
Because if you think of let's just begin from Nirbhaya. For first, it's just one thing it does. It just takes away the reality of the event. Like calling someone Nirbhaya, I'm pretty sure this is a person who definitely was scared. We all would be. Uh, so calling her Nirbhaya, and this just goes back to ancient traditions of mythifying horrific events. Like even in Greek mythology, you've got the myth of Philomela, someone who was
mm,
violated and her tongue was cut off, and I think she turned into a nightingale, something like that.
hmm hmm
So following the same thing, not following, but India has had this tradition of mythifying violent events. Now, what this like it this does several things. For one, I think in I don't believe this helps the victim. You talk People might say that it prevents stigma, but
mm.
why is stigma existing in the first place. If someone gets raped, the rapist should be stigmatized. Why should the
Exactly.
victim be stigmatized? It's not
Hmm.
her problem.
Hmm. So,
She
but
is the victim.
let me interrupt you for a minute. Let me take the
Yeah,
case for devils. The
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
the
Be the
count.
conductor.
Yeah, the counterpoint could be that if we take the name of the victim out loud in the press, this will hamper the smooth procedure of justice, and it might endanger the immediate family of the victim. So in that case, in order to safeguard against the onslaught of stigma, attack, and all kind of intimidation that happen after the rape happens to the victim,
Right.
so it could really be an obstacle to justice. So people may say that, okay, we are not trying to mythify his name, we are just helping him to get to the point of justice. We are trying to help the immediate family, nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, there is that. That's an argument. I mean, that's the argument that's put forward usually. But
Mhm.
I'd argue that we are just helping the criminal here, because what a rape essentially is taking the humanity away from a woman, violating a woman is taking her corporeal bodily identity away, because you're basically violating the body, and the real body has a real name, a real legal name, and the rapist has violated the body, and hence the body is no more, because the body is usually killed. And now we are removing the real legal name which the body had. If you compare Indian rapes with other hate crimes.
Mhm.
Although you can't compare rape with anything, but say take the example of the hate crimes in U.S. George Floyd.
Mhm.
What were the protests? Say his name, George Floyd. So they were bringing his identity to the fore. Like it's a way of shaming the instead of shaming the victim, it was a possible way to shame the perpetrator, and also remind people, and an effort to put this in history, an effort to not let this slip away from history, put this at the foreground, that this is the problem, this is a real person, like, all these people are real people, and they have been harmed. The moment we mythify someone, we are making the event and the person more abstract, and hence it we in a way this just serves ourselves. It makes the crime more palatable, or perhaps less horrific, but that's precisely what we need to get at. We need to realize that this is a horrific crime, and when it happens, someone's life is ruined forever. Someone's body is ruined forever. A real person is harmed, and hence the real name should be put to the foreground. It should be highlighted.
Okay, so
Uh,
what are you suggesting is really persuasive, but what I really am worried about, that this argument is persuasive on intellectual level, but
right.
could this be toned down and really be disseminated and made people, and could be used to convince people that this has a real meaning and could have a real impact on reuniting victims to the society, making them more acceptable to society, making them feel
Making, yeah,
less desirable
basically
in front of the society, and reuniting them as a,
integrating the victim back into mainstream
yeah,
life, if
yeah, yeah,
it's possible.
exactly. Do you think your argument could have a real impact in terms of rehabilitating the victim to the society?
I definitely can see that this is difficult in the Indian context, especially when I don't identify as a feminist, but let's just face it, we are a very patriarchal society, especially especially some of the states in northern India.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Maybe less so in Kerala and some other states where people think differently. But let's just take the state where it's actually happened, like Uttar Pradesh. Things are a little messed up, and people have antiquated ideas of uh, freedom of women and things like that. It is difficult, but we need to change the way we're thinking about hate crimes, and especially rape, since it's so rampant. I think what we got around, like around 80 odd rapes a year. What's the figure which was released in
By the
2019?
Yeah, close to
Like
that,
a
close to
day or
that.
something.
Yeah, yeah, close to that figure that you have said.
Yeah. So which source was this? Could you recall for us?
Yeah, give me a minute. By the time you
Yeah, no
complete,
problem.
yeah, yeah. So as you're making the point,
Yeah. So you've had like 80, around
87,
80 rapes, 80, yeah, 87
80
rapes. Yeah.
rapes. Hmm.
Uh, so this is a rampant problem, and if we keep having these rapes, they're either ignored, and when they are put into and when they're highlighted, we give them these special names. W- We are essentially just here helping violence to be perpetuated, because, as I said, the rapist, by violating the body, has removed the body from independent existence. Now we're just helping him by removing the legal name which was attached to the body. And so the identity of the victim remains in cultural consciousness, in mythic imagination. Probably thousands of years from now, people would make an epic out of Nirbhaya and others. But we're not addressing the problem. We're not addressing the actual rape that happened to an actual person, who needs to be helped and, if possible, brought back to mainstream life. So we're still far away from this debate, because we're not even talking about the incident anymore on mainstream news.
Like I have asked you before that do you because I know for a fact that your argument is based on looking after the looking up to the Western countries who have much more civic approach to rape and how they rehabilitate the victim to the society. So can you really draw a comparison what happens into other Western countries, maybe little bit of maybe European countries, how they proceed, how they try to approach this event, and what could be the lessons that we can learn from them in order to implement those in our country, keeping in mind
Yeah,
that
I mean,
India is
it's
vastly
right.
different from other countries.
Yeah, it's less to do. I mean, we can certainly look at developed countries, especially countries where crimes are low, like the Scandinavian areas, and but either way, like what I've observed when crimes happen in Western countries, any crime, you use your real name. You use the real
Mm-hmm.
name of the victim and the real name of the perpetrator, and that's how it is produced in the media. And the victim has his or her rights, and the perpetrator has his or her legal rights, and that's how it. They go to court or whatever, and that's how the affair is settled. You don't make things abstract or mythify things. That's only it is
Mm-hmm.
not a good idea to do that, especially when there's a legal system in place. What's the point of having high courts and supreme courts when you're gonna just be poetic about crimes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's basically my spiel on Hathras.
But like, are you sure that the like saying like right now a country is ruled by a like hyper masculine, hyper nationalistic, right wing populist uh,
Mhm.
government? For them, like like imagine yourself pitching this argument to all those people whom we see making hyper masculine statement like like the statement like women should not wear jeans because they
Yeah,
like
these statements are not like necessarily made by masculine people as well. I mean, there are women who perpetuate the patriarchy. now coming back to Hathras, the point was mythification. And if we look at mythification in a larger context,
Mm-hmm.
we've been doing this to everything in politics. Think of things like Achedin, and
Mm-hmm.
it's basically looking back at a mythical past, which the whole idea for Hindu Rashtra. We're using what in literature T.S. Eliot calls mythic method,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have the actual
T.S. Eliot.
reality. Yeah, you have actual reality where real events happen with with real people, and then you have this mythic framework which comments on reality. So that's how people are thinking in politics these days,
Mm-hmm.
where you have an actual country which is independent India, which one is freedom in 1947, and mythically, for at least for the hardcore BJP supporters, mythically it's just a continuation of this glorious Hindu past where what beef was banned
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and things like that, which by the way is a very modern hyper nationalist rendition of Hinduism, which is basically a work of Golwalkar and Savarkar. They're relatively recent people.
Mm.
Um, yeah, so mythification in general has been practiced in India because we love to worship.
Mm-hmm. Either worship or either debase them.
Yeah, so like for example, like Modi is like this messiah, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean, frankly, I just think that because Tendulkar retired from cricket, we needed someone to worship, and you know, in comes Modi.
Yeah. So just
We've replaced Tendulkar with Modi.
yes, absolutely. I think that was the most uh, I would say like irregular substitution. Like in no way so Modi can be compared to Sachin, but we just need someone to look up to and say that hey, we have got a hero. We are
Yeah, yeah,
yeah
he's got two syllables. In his
yeah yeah. So like just add to like just to echo your point even further to further. I found a quote that Nirvaya's
Mhm.
father said to the foreign publication when a foreign publication asked that we are so should we use your daughter's real name? They asked
Mm.
that should we use her real name or should we stick with the name that Indian government or the Indian media have been came up with Nirbhaya. So here is what father here is her father what he said to
What's
me.
the source for this?
Yeah, the wire has
Oh, gotcha.
quoted. Yeah, so let
By
me
the way,
quote.
to the listeners, whatever we're citing, you would find the links of the articles in the description below.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
go on,
yeah,
Vikas.
so let me quote him. We want the world to know her real name. My daughter did not do anything wrong. She died while protecting herself. I am proud of her. Revealing her name will give courage to other women who have survived this attack. They will find strength from my daughter. Unquote.
Yeah, there you go. Like right from I mean, it's from the horse's mouth. It's someone
Mhm, mhm,
who's part of the victim.
mhm. So, like, there's something that I believe that, you put it in very incredibly articulate manner, but it doesn't take away the fact that this idea is very commonsensical, because
It
this
is.
is
It is.
really yeah this is like really empowering the victim and her immediate family through just simple act of letting the name known to the public.
Yeah, like this happened
Mhm, mhm,
to a real person. Like we need to continually emphasize the reality of this horrific event. Like whenever this happens, because this will happen. Like frankly, there will be more rape cases in the future. And until we change, and saying that we need to change is such a general statement. Let's think about like things where we can change. For example, like the naming of the victim. This is one.
mhm,
This is an area where we can change.
mhm. So let me
Uh,
pick your brain on another issue related to this. Like, Since this, by the way, to again contextualize our discussion, that we are talking about one of the issues, one of the prescription that has been issued by the Justice Burma Commission right after the Nirbhaya gang rape, where Justice Burma,
Mm,
advised the police and judiciary and the media at large that you should not name the victim because this will endanger her life. And there are other directives that you can go and read. We'll put that in our description box too. So there's one directive was applicable to the one who uh, faced sexual assault or sexual mischiefs in the workplace too, or any other places. So in
mm.
that case too, Justice Burma said that you cannot name the victim. Do you think in those cases, like a sexual harassment case in the workplace, in any workplace for that matter, should the name of the victim be out in the public or should it be kept under wrap?
I don't know. This is a good question. What debate on? Um, Personally, I don't feel why you need to hide any kind of identity. But if this is not like, there are various degrees of a crime, right? I mean, if you think of a scale, like there are
Hmm.
different degrees to a crime. So if someone who's been harassed at a workplace is still able to function in mainstream life, it really depends on her. It's her choice whether she wants to reveal her identity or not.
Hmm.
But in case of a rape victim, like, this person is completely incapacitated. So in this case, I don't really see how hiding her name would help her.
So the other side of the argument could be like argument from the victim is that if I reveal my name, in that case, the person whom I have accused in my reported FIR, who is already in
Mm,
a position of power, could misutilize that power and could straightaway victimize me, could bring harm upon on me and my family. So to
right.
be on the safer side, I want to put a complaint on his name, but I don't want to name myself in the report because right now I am not in a position to make you know
Yeah,
more
but I think
effortful, trustful
this
claim.
situation arises because, for some strange, perverse reason, we stigmatize the victim instead of stigmatizing the perpetrator. And when someone's committed it, you might as well go after the perpetrator. And when
Hmm.
it's proved that someone has raped, then I don't see why you can't victim stigmatize the perpetrator.
Hmm.
And yeah, so this whole situation of hiding one's name out of fear arises because we stigmatize the victim.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah, what else is yeah? So this is basically our thesis
Okay,
in
yeah.
regarding how this. So what else is happening?
The breaking news is Joe Biden has defeated Donald Trump.
Yeah,
That's the
right.
biggest news right now. Breaking.
Yeah, it's strange. Would we miss his, like, in what ways would we miss Donald Trump, like his Twitter?
I'll miss his tweet. Let me be very
I
frank.
think he still used Twitter.
No, but the way the frenetical way in which he used to tweet during his presidency, I will surely miss that. Surely, no way. There's no doubt.
All caps.
All caps, exclamation marks, and strange syntactical errors.
Yeah, it's Trump English.
Yeah, Trump
Yeah,
English. So,
so as of today, on the day of recording this podcast, USA has a different president.
mhm,
Oh, wait. USA that is yet to have a different president.
exactly.
Biden
President
has one.
elect. President elect.
Things are going to happen. No, he's not announced. Is he announced president elect yet? Because things are going to
Yes.
happen.
Yes, he's now
He's going to go
president
to
elect.
court. Has he conceded?
Yes, because CNN and Fox News have already declared Joe Biden. AP, I
Yeah,
mean, Associate
Joe
Press
Biden
has
is the
declared.
clear winner, but the Trump campaign needs to concede. I mean,
Yeah,
they don't formally need to concede, but there hasn't been a
Trump will never
concrete.
concede. Even if you ask him after 10 years later that did you concede the 2019 election, he said that no, I didn't.
Yeah,
I won that election. People just kicked me out. That's all.
yeah, yeah.
So how do you
I
react to it? Except the
Yeah,
fact.
he handled coronavirus so well. He had the best spikes.
So yeah, how do you react to it? Like jokes apart, like do you really see that there could be a seismic change in the U.S. politics and how it
No.
engages with the world?
Probably he'll just get back to the Paris, and he'll just rejoin Paris agreement.
Hmm.
No, no, but there won't be any drastic change. What might happen for the better is a sanitization of public discourse.
In what way?
So things
In
like,
what
say,
way?
triggered Hillary and lock her up. These things might, it might not decrease, but it might be frowned upon once again. You might be encouraged to be polite in public again, which is needed because news hours and prime times have become so stressful. Not just in India, like not just on Republic TV, but everywhere on most channels. People have become bitter, and people have become hateful, and people refuse to have a discussion with the other side without name calling. So I think name calling and just generally being rude, which Trump encourages. Like Trump encourages hatred, anger. So these things might just there might be a lid on these things. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to politicians becoming boring again, and politics needs to become boring again. It has been conflated with the entertainment industry, which is something we could talk about when we think about the Indian TRP scam.
Sure. Like,
Uh,
except the fact that with the election of of the election of Joe Biden, people, I mean, decent people will be able to reclaim the public space. Except that fact, how do you think that this re-election of Joe Biden and American politics moving slightly towards the center or center left? Do you think there would be a seismic change in how U.S. politics will shape up in next 10 years, and how US will re-engage with different world powers who have right now uh, different people of different political orientation on their top?
well, we have to wait and see. Maybe like I don't see American foreign policy changing anytime soon. They'll still have like a bunch of wars in the Middle East. But I think there'll be more proactiveness from US in terms of human rights. So maybe they'll talk about Kashmir. Maybe they'll talk about CAA and RC. They'll be a little more vocal about them with Kamala Harris and Biden coming in.
Okay, do you think they will rebuke Saudi Arabia for conducting their inhuman war effort in Yemen? Do you think they will rebuke the Bolsonaro in Brazil? Do you think that they will try to re-engage and coerce those right-wing populist government to act in a more human way than they are usually doing to their own countrymen? Do you think that will be a seismic change in how US re-engages with the world and at large, and how it sees the world according to their own lens?
Yeah, it all depends on like their strategic relationship with these countries. So they'll probably be more vocal critic about that criticism. They probably we might find some form of statement coming in when these things happen. Maybe like when the Jamia, let's just call it what it is. When the terror attack in Jamia, when the terror attack in JNU happened, maybe these events have been internationalized. BBC reported on them. Like most leading newspapers reported on these. So there probably would be more statements coming in when these events happen. So I'm thinking of Biden Harris from a human rights perspective. We might see them being more proactive.
Okay. Like for me personally, I believe that there should be. I'm expecting because Joe Biden, and I've seen that how he acted during the vice presidency of Barack Obama. He has seen him closely how he engages the world. So looking his track record in the public service, I believe that US should re-engage his world in more proactive manner, and they should try to reclaim that spot where every other world power, every other developing nation used to look up to them and sought help, and they would to
Yeah,
come.
especially the press,
Yeah,
right? I
exactly,
mean,
exactly.
So yesterday, when Trump was going on about illegal votes, I think there were three networks which cut him off,
Hmm.
and that was highlighted by a lot of Indian journalists, especially on the internet. That like like we would love to see a day when an Indian news channel
But
uh,
honestly, like,
cuts off a prime minister
just
who is not Manmohan Singh.
yeah, just to interrupt you, that even though the re-election of Donald Trump had brought in the right-wing media, a conservative media, into the public center point, but it has actually emboldened the efforts of neutral media and the media that and the other media sources that have been emboldened due to the efforts of Trump. I mean, look at Washington Post, look at CNN, look at CNBC, look at New York Times. They have emboldened their effort to thwart the president's misinformation campaign. Like, they had stood up to the task. So I was never in doubt that American press were free. Like, they're always free. They always knew how to battle the misinformation campaign by Trump and the right wing media. What I'm surprised is that Indian media have never actually had a spine. They had for some time, but from
No,
2014.
they had because like despite corruption and everything else that happened with UPA too, generally speaking, they just happen to be more democratic.
I mean,
For
exactly.
example, I remember this incident in JNU where Manmohan Singh had visited the campus, and obviously there was some altercation, and Manmohan
Hmm.
Singh said something like that I disagree with you, but I respect your right to disagree with me. So generally speaking, this like our current government in India is just not democratic. They don't really care for the system.
Hmm.
Like Modi is what Trump wanted to be in America.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the press didn't allow him, and the other institutions also, to some extent, stood firm. The problem with India
Hmm.
is that we are so bent on obeying. And the problem with with Indian society and manners is that we conflate respect with obedience. Like
Hmm.
for India, like just think of how kids are raised. You respect your parents, like, no
Hmm.
matter what.
Hmm.
And that happens everywhere in the world, but especially in India, like you're not supposed to talk back to your teachers or your
Hmm.
parents,
Hmm. Hmm.
even if someone in your family like sexually abuses you, abuses you, like you can't like talk back. That's generally the idea that respect is just obedience. They're not synonymous, but in India, it is synonymous.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you respect someone, you can't talk. You can't have a civilized argument with them, or call this person out when this person is going off track. So that's what we do with our political leaders. We
Interesting,
again
because
we worship them.
hmm, hmm.
We worship Modi.
It's a very interesting thing, because I understand that India, in a way, still have a feudal structure to how we go about in a society. And
Yeah, think about so the people who would be calling us our urban axles for critiquing Modi, which you're welcome to. Like, even when we see rallies featuring Priyanka Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi, I mean, there are such sycophantic crowds that follow them. Stop deifying leaders. You can deify the founding members of the people who founded your country. You could deify Gandhi and Nehru. It's, it's perfectly fine if you're deifying the founders, which a section of India isn't these days. They're coming up with new theories about Godse and Gandhi and Nehru. So I'm perfectly fine with deifying founders, but stop deifying Modi and Rahul Gandhi. Like, what do you get out of it?
exactly. So yeah, the hero worship is part of our DNA. And the second thing that I was come back to earlier
Yeah,
point is that
hero worship your favorite cricketer, hero worship your favorite musician, your favorite actor. Do that.
hmm,
Politics needs to be boring. Like in 20 from around the 2010s, politics became entertaining.
hmm,
Like even when I was growing up, I wouldn't really watch the news, but even I started watching the news because it just became entertaining, and that's a bad sign. I need to watch news, but not because it's entertaining. It needs to be drab and boring again, because that's the nature of all. That should be the nature of politics. You need to listen to a political leader and then have a peaceful night of sleep. So
Mm-hmm.
hopefully Biden would be able to bring that in America. So
Yeah.
I would like India to have a boring prime minister again.
Yeah. So coming back to your answer, like to your point that we conflate respect with obedience.
Obedient.
Yeah, recently I was watching this wonderful interview with Shashi Tharoor with Karan Thapar. He was saying when Karan Thapar asked him that since you are from basically from a Malayalam family, so basically from South, and you're practicing your most of your political life in the North. So what is the basic difference, fundamental difference between the politics in the North and South? And he said the exactly the answer that in India we mistake respect with obedience, and which
Oh,
it
he said
doesn't.
this.
Yeah,
Okay,
he said
interesting.
that, and he said that in Kerala, although people respect each other, but they necessarily do not fear the people in power. They have the guts to walk up to their representative and ask him or her the difficult question. They ask him to they ask him to literally give him a balance sheet that what did you do for us for last 5 years, something that we cannot do in North. And he was sharing his one anecdote that when Jyotiraditya Scindia was in Congress, he went into Jyotiraditta Scindia's constituency, probably in Gwalior, and Jyotiraditta Scindia was actually uh, going for his campaign in an open rooftop sort of car with Shashi Tharoor, and people,
Mm,
I mean, Jyotiraditta Scindia was throwing out flowers to the supporters like a Raja used to do it to his
yeah,
subjects. So and Shashi Tharoor was very amused, and he said that you are really born into a royal family, something I could really see from your campaign. But if you ever walk up to if you ever go to Kerala or in southern state and you expect such kind of respect or obedience from your supporters, probably you'll be disappointed because people do not treat their leaders the way you are being treated. Like currently, your relation with with your supporters is like a king to his subject. Something it
yeah,
will
it's
never
strange.
happen
It's,
in, yeah, never happen in South.
yeah,
And
although we claim that, well, like, sorry to cut you off,
yeah, sure.
but
Hmm.
although we claim that we have democratized democracy, because most of us are very poor in India, which we have to some extent. We have
Yeah.
most people, even the poor, from the poor, they do understand some of the nuances of democracy.
Hmm.
And in fact, a lot of the sycophants are also people who are very well off, who are very affluent.
Hmm.
But this general structure of serfdom, or to use the Indian word gulami,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it's interesting that we don't have a translation of gulami. Like serfdom doesn't really cut it, and it's not slavery. It's this specific Indian thing. We like being gulams.
Hmm. Is it because of a colonial I mean we have a 200 years of colonial heritage where we literally served the British on their beck and call. So does it have to do with your colonial heritage that we had?
I think it goes before that, because with the British, I think it's closer to the traditional, or the more common Western ideas of serfdom and slavery. Although, like, not all of us were slaves under the British, but I think the dynamic was more master slave. Whereas Gulami has a certain level of volition, I'd say, where you're also participating in your own oppression. Remember, like, Samuel L. Jackson's character in Django Unchained?
Yes, 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 yes.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's similar to the Indian Gulami, where you're a slave and you know it. You have this demeaning position in that family that you're living in, but you're proud of it in a perverse way.
Mm. So do you think that this I mean, well, to connect your idea with the Sashi Tharoor one, like there is a vast difference between how people, I mean, leaders and these their supporters engage with their political leaders in politics in the north and the south. So do you think that this very idea of speaking truth to the power, becoming respectful yet demanding to your public representative that happens in south could be replicated or could be really spread around in the north ever? Because if this happens, I think there will be seismic shift how we
No,
elect
South
our.
has education. South has more. South, like Kerala is more literate, and South has more education. And when I say education, it's not just STEM. They're educated in like humanities as well. Some of the, like Hyderabad has like some of the best universities in India besides Delhi.
Hmm.
So South tends to be just more liberal.
Um,
Um, we just need more education. And
but
by education, I'm talking about humanities where people need to think. It's not just about like STEM subjects, which would give you a green card, which is frankly how most Indians think about education.
yeah.
So we need education to help us think, be familiar with human feelings like compassion,
Mm, mm-hmm.
uh, empathy.
Mm,
Education should give us these things. And I just think South has more of that. Think of the Kerala model, which was like the term was hijacked by Modi for the Gujarat model. But think of the Kerala
mm-hmm.
model, which has been globally renowned. Like
Mm-hmm.
the lowest rates of female infanticide, decent sex ratio, literacy up, education up. So Kerala is educated, and the neighboring states of South India are also doing pretty well. They have been doing well for a pretty good reason, for a pretty long while.
Just to make this discussion a bit more complicated, I feel there is another facet to this discussion of the approach of politics in South and North. In North has always seen invasion from centuries. Compared to South, they have seen people coming across the sea to do trade, and in a way they establish a cosmopolitan society, in sort of colony you could say, but that was cosmopolitan nature. The first contact with our with the Europeans, with the foreigners, so as to say, it happened through the ports of Kerala and across that coast. So in
You
that
could
way,
say.
I believe that when people in North met with foreigners, they usually met on the battleground, whereas when people in South met with foreigners, they usually met on the ports, on the eve of exchanging or doing a trade deal. So I believe that there is something has to do with how we approach that explain why we have a hierarchical and more feudal structure in North to compare to what we have in South. So the cosmopolitan nature has to also play a role in how we go about a politics in both the side of uh, both the side of mountains. In North, it is completely hierarchical, feudal, where you actually worship the leaders, your representative, public representative, who are supposed to be on your beck and call, who are supposed to represent you, who's supposed to, where you're supposed to demand, literally demand explanation on why you couldn't do this job that you promised. Where what we see in the North is completely opposite. What happened in South is pretty idealistic in that way.
So you're saying that the people that they like the internationalized
Hmm,
atmosphere
hmm, hmm.
as a result of trade rubbed off on South Indian society?
Exactly, because yeah, exactly. It's not just about literacy. I agree. I concede the point that literacy has a point to play
No,
in
maybe
making
perhaps
the
perhaps literacy is a result of that atmosphere because you need to be literate to be
cosmopolitan.
to engage in trade.
Yeah, yeah. It's not slightly. It's not. Yeah. Also, it's. I feel it's slightly counterintuitive because to do trade, you're not always required to be educated. Remember the first set of businessmen, the Gilded Age. They were not literate. They were just
Uh,
they're just people with industry and enterprise who want to do something different from who their father did.
no,
I don't.
and like if we come back to the people who are living in India right now,
Mhm,
like okay, we've talked about South, but if you think of the states which are northwards, there's like states which behave a little differently from say Uttar Pradesh or
mhm,
the quote unquote Hindi heartland.
mhm,
Are traditionally Bengal and Punjab, and now they behave differently because they are border states, so they've seen atrocities. So
mhm, mhm.
probably they've decided that let's let's be different, let's be more inclusive because that's one way because it works.
Yeah, just to add to this ongoing argument, argument discussion, that this the observation that I'm going to share would might appear trite to audience and maybe to you, but there's something that I can't help but share because uh,
Yeah.
we both stayed in north for a long time. So remember that
Mm,
in north we have seen marriages from distance, we have seen people using guns to celebrate, whereas in
yeah.
whereas in east, where we have spent our most of our infancy, our childhood.
It's more sedate.
Exactly, exactly. And you understand is because in north, since they have dealt with invasion, they have dealt with foreigners, so they're used to keeping guns to protect themselves. Where in east, where we have pretty peaceful history, relatively peaceful history, we never took guns, we never took up weapons. There was somebody else who fought for us. Like I'm talking
Yeah, but
about
wouldn't guns come later? As in, we fought with swords and stuff
exactly, like
before.
I'm not talking guns per se, I'm talking weapons, like
Okay.
the
Are you talking about
relation.
pre-independent India or post
No,
or
I'm
say
talking
post-British?
pre-independent India, pre-British time. That remember the time that it explains what is the relation of
No, but
North
then
India.
the Industrial Revolution itself happened after the British came, right?
Yeah,
Like it
like
happened
I'm
in
not
the
talking about
1800s.
British, I'm talking about the time before British,
Right.
when North has to dealt with invasion, so they
Yeah. So,
had to
but you
use.
would have when were guns invented? Like, were guns invented during the Industrial Revolution or like before that?
I
We
believe.
need to check that out because I think before that it was mostly swords and stuff.
Yeah, guns were invented, I think, after. Let me check. But the point that I
Yeah.
make, the point I was making was uh, that this explains the relation of North
You mean
Indians with.
they would have weapons because for self-preservation.
Yeah. So guns were invented during 1380.
Oh wow. So
So
when did it reach India? Probably.
I think during Babur, he came up with cannon, right? He fought
I
with
see.
cannons. Yeah,
Yeah.
Battle of Panipat. So that was one of the reason why he won the war hands down, because you're fighting cannons with elephants, so there is no match.
Hmm.
But coming to the point that I'm making, that this explains the relation what North Indian had to weapons vis-a-vis
Yeah.
guns,
Yeah.
one that we have in South or East for that matter, because we mostly have a peaceful time in history. So somebody else has protected for us. So which is why you can understand the violence.
Until the point where we had the partition and everything.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So this particularly explains their relation with politics, gun. These are all interrelated topic, and hence their leaders are so emasculated. They are so daring. They come up with statements that are misogynistic. You can these are all, I believe, interrelated. So these need to be looked in under lens, because we are talking on a macroscopic level. I believe these in topics take individual attention and looked
Yeah,
at
I think we like if we are to go by your line of thought, we'll have to like connect various historical periods and find a through line to
mm,
see if this
mm, mm, mm.
works. But yeah, it's interesting. Now coming back to
Yeah.
like respect and obedience, which was the tangent. Guitar player John Mayer has this very cool phrase which he mentioned in an interview where he said, "Respect is another word for trust."
Yes, 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 yes. Hmm. Hmm.
And hence, before voting, we should just ask, do we trust our politician? And similarly, when respect, if respect is another word for trust, we could apply that to people in our immediate vicinity. Like,
Hmm.
say, for example, trust your partner, or
Trust your
yeah.
professor
So
or supervisor.
yeah, that would also like decrease hate crimes. So right now, it might because right now respect is probably like one reason why hate crimes like rape. I'm gonna classify hate. I mean, it is like a crime of fashion, or whatever, but it is a form. Is it a form of hate crime? It is to
Yeah,
some
but
extent
yeah, but
because you're probably hating the body, you're
legally
hating the
speaking,
sex.
it's a crime of passion, right? Legally speaking, it's a
Mm.
crime of passion.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, at the same, so if we think about respect in that case, we are actually dedicating respect to certain figures.
Mm.
So in the Indian context of respect, you're not like consciously respecting your peers, which you should. this might have some connection with the nature of crimes that we have. Like we usually just respect our parents, our teachers, and but we don't talk about respect for peer groups and respect for the other sex who are part of your peer groups.
So
Essentially, India is a strange place where people are just not socialized enough,
mm,
integrated enough. That could be a possible a reason for the rampant rapes that happen.
so I mean, there's something like if I want to add, I mean, to contextualize this point is that a number of sexual harassment cases that happen in workplace are done by people they are known to each other. It's an interesting thing
Interesting.
because yeah,
Yeah.
because it could relate it to the point that you're saying that we do not respect people beyond our immediate vicinity, like
Yeah,
family.
and by respect, I'm not talking about these token gestures of worshiping. You don't need to
Hmm.
say you don't need to speak in 16th century English to thou art, I love thee.
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah.
It's just acknowledging the common humanity that we share. That's basically what respect should boil down to.
Mm.
If you're talking about people in your immediate vicinity,
Okay, so
that someone's got the same human characteristics, the same DNA as I have, and
mm,
hence there should be a mutual sense of respect, which doesn't happen
mm,
in
mm,
India.
mm. So very interesting take because I mean we are actually going back to the root cause as to why these crimes are happening at such a rapid pace, because sexual harassment cases happening at a rapid pace in India because the youths are coming to the workforce, they're coming moving into big cities, they are going to this offices where they come with a lot of aspiration. So I understand where this point is emerging because right now we need to understand when a large young demographic population is moving to an aspirational future, what are the
Mhm.
challenges that can come with, because if you need to understand, you have to go back to the roots and come up with remedial measures to mitigate this risk. Otherwise we'll like endanger the entire future in that way.
Since you mentioned aspirational future, I mean the aspiring bit comes from the India superpower 2020 ruse. Let's just call it a ruse, right?
Yeah, it's a ruse, absolutely
And
it's a ruse.
again, we come back to the point of mythification.
Yeah, glorifying our past as something that was happened only once and we have to repeat that again because we are
Yeah, because
incapable of.
now the superpower thing is a mythification which supporters of Modi would probably
Mhm,
use. I
mhm.
mean, you can't really call it India superpower right now,
Yeah, but
even pre-corona.
it is also project an emasculated sense of international politics, like
Yeah,
one
and
have
the
to
thing
be
is, I
dominate
don't.
other.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like you mentioned the point of domination. Why is super being a superpower aspirational? Think of the superpowers that have existed: Russia, USA. They're miserable.
Mm,
And
mm.
think of some of the happiest countries in the world who rank high in the happiness index. Norway.
Bhutan.
Uh, yeah, I
Bhutan.
mean, Bhutan recently they began the happiness index, but recently like they've become a little more authoritarian. But yeah, Bhutan initially.
Mhm,
But think of Scandinavia.
mm.
Uh, they're not superpowers. We barely think of them. Maybe
Yeah.
in football, but
Yeah.
football or Europa League, but that's it.
Iceland.
They're barely visible, and there's
Mm,
I think if we think about aspiring, those areas are probably places that we can think of when we think of a model.
mm,
I mean, they're small countries, granted.
mm,
So, like for certain aspects, we can think of USA if we think of press freedom.
mm, mm.
But if we just think
Separation
about
of power.
yeah,
Separation of power.
absolutely. But if
Mm.
if we think of aspiring, then if you think of how we can manage gender equality or peaceful coexistence, Scandinavia is probably a better model.
I agree with you 100% because I mean I never understood when I was myself I was aspiring to be doing my masters in international relation. I was going to this different kind of models that preceded the current behavioralistic approach to international relation. The one question that always went around my head is that why do we have to aspire to a position of domination where we will snatch resources, we'll snatch territory, where we will adjudicate on others' territory sovereignty, and we'll make sure that our rule of law get implied or applied over other countries. Why can't we just stay in our own border and make the best use of our resources? Yes, we need to go out of our country to fetch resources to trade. I agree with you that that could be done without
Mm,
being in a
correct.
position of superpower. You can do peaceful negotiation like we do in daily life. Do you go to your nearby grocery store and so that I am the one who rules the area, so you have to give me 10% extra discount? We don't do that. We go to 24/7. They give you brilliant discount. Remember the time we go is to go 24/7. So yeah,
Mm,
go to the spot that give you brilliant discount without harking or shouting at the the people on the man on or the woman on the reception. You have to just be calm and do the job. Just don't there's
yeah,
something
I
that
think this is because we have conflated social behavior with biological or natural behavior, where you'd often find people in positions of authority in companies talking about natural selection, where basically they're talking about, when they talk about attrition rates, they talk about survival of the fittest. Now, natural selection, like Darwinian selection, is supposed to happen naturally. It's not in our control, but we think it is.
yeah, and we try to we try to game on the selection that in any
Yeah,
way you can upend the chances of our getting selected.
yeah, that's basically
So
it.
so
So I'm Chanakya, and with me you had Vikas, and
yeah.
those are in fact our real names. You
And
better believe it. Our parents loved us enough to call us Vikas and Chanakya,
yeah.
and we'll see you next time.